Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. As always, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for either of our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate. Just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. Also, at the end of today's webinar, we are going to be doing a drawing for 4 $100 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is Couchbase, a cloud-native database for modern workloads. Our speakers today are David Schexnader, Principal Partner Solutions Architect at Couchbase, and Vijay Arangurakai, who is Senior Solutions Architect at Red Hat. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
David, I know you are going to be kicking off our conversation, so I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute and let you get right to it.
Right, thank you. So let's go ahead and get right to it. This is kind of a 1 + 1 = 3. Combining the best of 2 worlds with automated containerization. This is kind of why Red Hat, OpenShift, and Couchbase together. With OpenShift, you have 1,500 plus customers. This is trusted enterprise-grade Kubernetes. Tons of open source innovation on the Red Hat side. It's very self-service oriented, kind of the same way that Couchbase is. Empowering developers to innovate, develop locally, deploy anywhere. You have a lot of automation built into the platform for, basically a cloud-like experience everywhere, whether you're running on your laptop on code-ready containers, which is a virtual OpenShift cluster, or out in the cloud on-prem. With Couchbase, we've been around for a while. This is enterprise class, open source, NoSQL data platform. We're combining some of the cloud native advantages with well-known tools. We do have our own SQL, JSON for SQL language, so not much needed as far as retraining. Many people already have those types of skills in-house, and we're leveraging data management all the way from the cloud to the edge and backwards. We provide synchronization between multiple instances, and we're really accelerating Red Hat's OpenShift via automation of its database platform tasks, and that's where our Couchbase Autonomous Operator comes into play. So basically, both platforms ready to scale with you. So let's talk a little bit about the Couchbase data platform itself. The core service capabilities, these are in the red center rings. This is kind of, Couchbase has been around since 2011. A lot of the architectural decisions that were made early on led us to be able to be, basically be able to run cloud native. We're memory first. We feature elastic scalability, replication both within the cluster to multi-cluster deployments. The product has evolved quite a bit, but we do offer many services and ways to access your data, query service, separate analytics service, full text search, indexing, and we also can act as just a simple key value store. We have eventing, which is basically user-defined events and actions, as well as a mobile platform, which has been around with us since 2014. A large number of integrations. We integrate with with all cloud, on-prem, as well as bare metal type of solutions. So let's talk a little bit about JSON. This at the end of the day, Couchbase is a document database. A JSON schema allows you to better model real world type of objects, and JSON is basically the standard interchange format for web, mobile, and IoT applications. And so now you can have JSON, basically native JSON support end to end with your solution. We offer a flexible schema to support the variety of changing data generated by modern applications, and also support rapidly evolving schemas. We can store this in multiple ways. You can do denormalized, normalized, binary values, and as far as the data access itself, you can do direct key value access. We have SQL, which we refer to as N1QL, which is Nickel, our JSON for SQL language. We have full text search built into the platform, and also our analytics service, which is isolated from the other query service, acts in an MPP way. And we also have the event-based triggers, as I had mentioned. So let's look at the OpenShift adoption for Couchbase clusters. Kubernetes has been going in warp speed for the past few years. One of the big concerns was, hey, why would I run a database in the cloud? Typically, you would have stateless applications. They would access a bare metal or a Couchbase cluster in the cloud. You'd end up with manual deployments. Basically your system administrators are in charge of rebalancing, networking upgrades, recovery. But now with our Couchbase autonomous operator, you can now also deploy your Couchbase cluster on OpenShift in the cloud and have it be stateful. And basically, instead of having to have separate system administrators and people focusing on this, now we have the Couchbase autonomous operator, which is going to automate your deployment, recovery, rebalance, and also handle upgrades, as well as a lot of other features. Okay, so one of the advantages of also running our Couchbase through the autonomous operator is you can also configure multi-dimensional scaling. So if we look at the top figure, this is we have 8 different containers, each running a separate instance of Couchbase server, all configured to run the index, query, and data service simultaneously. Well, what if we have a less of a need for the query service and more on a data-heavy workload? We can scale the data service to a subset of the containers, and also isolate the query service or index service to different containers, or containers with different types of profiles. The data service may run on smaller containers as far as capacity goes, where the query and index service may run on higher memory capacity instances. So let's talk about the Couchbase operator capabilities. We were one of the first, if not the first, operator certified. This was back in 2018. We're now currently a level 5 operator, which has the basic install, seamless upgrades, full life cycle, deep insights, and autopilot. So we can manage the cluster life cycle as well as the cluster configuration. Some of these to call out is our cross data center replication, persistent storage support, high availability features. A lot of these that were already built into the platform, and once again be able to run on most popular public clouds, bare metal, as well as of course OpenShift. So basically, with the operator now as your robot system administrator who's managing your cluster objects, if we do have a node failure or a container failure or pod failure within the cluster, the application request will automatically be routed to the other pods running, the other instances running, as well as a data rebalance in the back. So I'll show this to you a little bit in more detail when I go through a demo. So Couchbase operator on OpenShift. Essentially, the OpenShift cluster is the master. With API authentication. Potentially, your data storage, scheduler, and handle the management and replication. Our autonomous operator will manage the Couchbase instances, such as services, pods, or volumes. And this also shows, scalable service options. So essentially, we could either isolate separate Couchbase services or co-locate them all on the same pods. Okay, and this kind of brings us out where you have, at Red Hat's Advanced Cluster Manager, or you're managing, multiple instances, or you have a hybrid cloud solution, such as being able to run on-prem as well as in the cloud. Couchbase's cross data center replication, which is what we refer to as XDCR, you would be able to bidirectionally replicate, promote applications from, if you're isolating your environments from, dev test, QA, as well as prod. You could use the Couchbase's cross data center replication to manage your data movement. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vijay.
Thank you, David. Thanks everybody for joining this session this afternoon. Really appreciate that. So you heard how Couchbase integrates well with OpenShift. So I want to quickly take a few minutes to talk about OpenShift itself. So OpenShift Container Platform 4.6 is the latest version of it. And with every release, and the release cadence being 3 to 3.5 months, there's always a whole bunch of features that get added in. Typically, you can see that there are 3 silos here, or 3 buckets, if you will, where features on the installer side or the platform side and the workloads, that the applications that you run on it. So with OpenShift 4.6, we have Kubernetes version 1.19 packaged as part of it. We also have included a full stack automated installation from a bare metal perspective. So those are key standouts. And also you can currently install OpenShift on AWS and Azure government clouds, because those are public sectors entities, and they always have stringent requirements more than commercial customers, and they have to have their own isolated environments, and you can deploy OpenShift on those. From the core platform perspective, we are working on bringing OpenShift to the edge and telco deployments with having remote worker nodes. That is a newer capability. So if you understand OpenShift, you would see that there's always an entity called a control plane, which is, or you can call those the master or the supervisory nodes. And then there are the worker nodes where you actually run the container workloads. So today with 4.6, you can have the master node, say for instance, in a customer's data center, and then have these remote worker nodes deployed at the edge or closer to where the action is. And you can have a schematic like that and still be able to have OpenShift and run your workloads on those. OVN also has become GA as part of 4.6, and the compliance operator has also been GA as part of 4.6. From a workload stability perspective, we have added user workload monitoring for applications. There's more and more work going on to provide that experience, and new APIs have been included that allows users to configure how logs are handled. Serverless eventing, that's another feature, product feature as part of OpenShift, that has also been GA. Next slide, please, David. This particular slide gives you a higher level view of OpenShift itself, and then it kind of shows you how it stacks up, or how the different layers of OpenShift stacks up from the infrastructure level all the way up to the application and the management itself. Advanced Cluster Management is another product that Red Hat has, which lets you manage and maintain multiple clusters, OpenShift clusters that is, and also the applications running on top of it. Kubernetes, of course, is under the hood, which is the heart of the orchestration engine that OpenShift has. And Red Hat OpenShift today can run on both Red Hat's Enterprise Linux and RHEL CoreOS, where RHEL CoreOS being the default operating system if you do an automated install or an IPI method of installation of the OpenShift container platform. Doesn't matter where it is, on bare metal, virtualized hardware, or in the public clouds. Next slide, please. So this slide goes on to show the same point I was talking about. You get the same experience of the OpenShift product or the platform, irrespective of where you deploy. You can today deploy OpenShift on all of the public clouds that are available today, or also on-prem. You get the same experience both from the product perspective and the subscriptions perspective. With that being said, you also get the same look and feel from an automated operations perspective. It's inherently multi-tenant, so you can carve up namespaces. If there are 10 teams working on that platform, you can assign teams to work or get into a particular project or a namespace and only look at content within that project or namespace. They cannot go back and look at something else that they're not supposed to. It's inherently secure. It's built on top of Red Hat's Enterprise Linux and also RHEL CoreOS, which is a derivative of RHEL itself. Over-the-air updates, meaning, say, for instance, you have to work in an air-gapped environment. That's a possibility. And also, we're adding more and more features with respect to monitoring. And with working like partners like Couchbase, we are making OpenShift more pluggable. Like if you want to deploy Couchbase, like David mentioned, go to the operator hub on OpenShift Web Console. You would be able to search for Couchbase, pull it up, hit it, and deploy it. So that's how seamless we have tried to make the experience and make it more pluggable for customers to work with OpenShift and our partners products like Couchbase. Next slide, please. So as of 4.6, the ecosystem is expanding. So from an automated install, and I just mentioned about the bare metal automated install for OpenShift that's been included. The IPI methodology of installation is available with AWS, Azure, Google, including VMware's vSphere, Red Hat's Enterprise Virtualization, and bare metal. And the same set is available if you already have an existing relationship with those cloud partners. You have already deployed a bunch of things and you've architected those key pieces or objects of that cloud provider in certain ways, you can still deploy OpenShift onto them. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of our customers who sometimes say that I can take control and do everything on my own, but there are others who say that I want to focus on building just my applications. Red Hat, you deal with what you got to do. So for customers like those, we do offer certain services, managed services to be specific, to say that you don't worry about installing, maintaining, and managing the platform. Both Red Hat and the cloud provider can do that. So with respect to that, with AWS, we have something called as AMRO, which is Amazon Red Hat OpenShift, a similar offering with Azure as well. And then, say for instance, there's also cases for OpenShift dedicated, where Red Hat completely manages it. A customer can provide give us their account to install OpenShift onto that cloud provider that they already have a relationship with. So there are multiple routes to market. Red Hat can work with you all to be able to understand what best fit for you, and then we can move it forward. Next slide, please. This slide talks about how various workloads can run on OpenShift. We currently have customers who run both sides of the databases, and Couchbase being a premier partner, a lot of our customers run Couchbase on OpenShift itself. There's also customers who run legacy databases like MySQL on it. A lot of customers are looking to run AI and ML workloads, messaging applications with JMS and Kafka and others, means streams, right? That, like including Kafka, they're a big part of the application ecosystem today. And of course, OpenShift lends itself to conversations about DevOps and being able to monitoring it and monetizing the platform for all of our customers. Next slide, please. So the platform would not be a platform if we can't run any applications on it, right? So OpenShift looks at all aspects of it, and it plays well to all audiences, including developers. So it does not dictate that you got to do certain things certain ways. I've seen customers leverage legacy applications more than 15 years old, and as long as they can be containerized with being at OCI compliant, you can lift and shift even legacy applications to OpenShift. It does not dictate that you have to have them as either Spring Boot applications or something else to be able to get the goodness of the platform itself. So that way, it helps developers. You can run languages such as Java or .NET Core, and with the advent of OpenShift virtualization, you can even take .NET Framework applications and run them on OpenShift also. So there are customers who currently run Node.js applications, Python, PHP, Ruby, whatever you want to, or whatever is out there today can be run on top of OpenShift. And of course, there's always more development happening with respect to bringing microservices or enabling developers to look at microservices and how quickly they can build those microservices and bring them to the market. That's always a key focus of the platform and how it actually drives or enables the developer community from that perspective. Next slide, please. So cloud native development is always an intrinsic conversation that happens, or it goes along with OpenShift, and Red Hat has developed capabilities around it. So OpenShift Pipelines, which is based off of Tecton, we're going to talk about that briefly, is another capability that has been brought into the product. Serverless, that's also provided as part of the product feature. Service Mesh, which is based off of the OpenShift or open source Istio project that has been GA'd recently. And then there's a whole suite of Red Hat's middleware products, including JBoss and Fuse and the others, so that whatever you want to do, there's an ecosystem of products that Red Hat has that can run on top of OpenShift, and it's certified, meaning you can, just like how Couchbase's database and its operator is certified, you know that Red Hat and our partners, we stand behind that to be able to help you move forward. Next slide, please. So UBI is a key aspect that the Red Hat Enterprise Linux BU brought about a few years ago. So why UBI, you may ask? So earlier, say for instance, before the advent of UBI, if you had to develop a container base image, if you had to create that, you got to go look for where you want to get the base image from, because a container has a host OS and you want to understand what you want to put in it, and UBI kind of fits the bill there. So UBI is based off of RHEL, but it's a trimmed down version of RHEL. So there are 3 flavors that are available currently, and the standard flavor of UBI is about 70 megs. So it is the goodness of RHEL, but all the packages stripped away just to make it relevant from a container host perspective. It's free to use, it's freely redistributable, and we highly encourage that you take a look at it. And every operator, including Couchbase's operator, is developed on top of Red Hat's UBI universal base image. And that's how they put it through its basis at the certification process, and that's how it comes on to the OpenShift Web Console's Operator Hub or the catalog.redhat.com. Next slide, please. So OpenShift pipelines, and we all had a brush with Jenkins and CI/CD, and a lot of y'all would have dealt with Argo CD and so on, right? So OpenShift pipelines is based off of Tecton. It is, at the end of the day, a serverless CI/CD system that runs pipelines with all of the required dependencies in isolated containers. It's designed for decentralized systems that work on microservices-based architecture. So it uses standard CI/CD pipeline definitions so that you don't need to relearn everything. That's easy to extend and integrate with the existing Kubernetes tools, enabling you to scale on demand. So we highly encourage that you take a look at it, and it's easy to use. There's a lot of information available on blogs and other documentation at redhat.com to be able to understand what OpenShift pipelines can offer for you. Next slide, please. OpenShift Serverless, again, a different open source project that Red Hat worked with to be able to bring it to an enterprise grade product like OpenShift. Again, this is a product feature that can be installed on top of OpenShift at no additional cost. So serverless is a model that allows you to build and run applications. So any event trigger that occurs, the application will be able to automatically respond or scale up based on the incoming demand. So you can save on infrastructure if that's something that you're looking at, so that you can scale up, scale down, depending on the incoming requests, and you don't need to have infrastructure just standing up there waiting for incoming requests. So OpenShift Serverless helps developers to deploy and run event-driven applications that are based on an event trigger and you can scale up resources as needed, or you can even pre-configure that limit. And then you can scale up and R to 0 after that resource burst has occurred. So in the OpenShift serverless model, applications are packaged as OCI compliant Linux containers that can run anywhere. Your code can be packaged with runtimes in a container, and then it can take advantage of event-driven and scale to 0 resource consumption when not in use. So this has been GA'd with 4.6, and it's available for use. Next slide, please. The same story with the OpenShift Service Mesh. Istio is the open source project. Red Hat contributed to it. You would have seen, if you had attended the Red Hat Summit in the past couple of years, you would have seen a lot of conversations around this area. So Service Mesh is a platform that provides behavioral insight and operational control over Service Mesh, providing a uniform way to connect, secure, and monitor microservices applications. So you would have heard about the sidecar approach, not bundling anything as part of your applications, so to speak. And then your application only focuses on the business challenge that you're trying to solve and letting Service Mesh do the rest for you. And this product or this feature is also GA'd as part of OpenShift 4.6, and you can install it after you have the OpenShift platform running for you. And again, this feature comes at no cost to you. It's bundled as part of the OpenShift Container Platform product itself. With that being said, I would like to hand it back to David.
Thank you, Vijay. So basically, I'm going to do a live demo for you. So what we're going to do is deploy a microservice based off of Twitter on a live OpenShift cluster with the Couchbase autonomous operator. So essentially, the microservices are there's 3 different microservices. There's a UI service, an API service, as well as a tweet ingester. All right. So if we look at our OpenShift cluster, this was basically, I used the easy button here. Not going to lie about that. I used the installer provision infrastructure for OpenShift 4.6 in an AWS region. It automatically place the cluster into 3 different availability zones. So very easy to work with and to get started. So what I was going to show you is where what Vijay had alluded to earlier. This is the operator hub, and if we just run a quick search here for Couchbase, then we see the Couchbase operator, which I do already have installed, as well as the Red Hat Marketplace operator. So as you can see that this has the capability level. We're at operator version 2.02. So also made it while deploying through Operator Hub. It also makes it very easy to to configure your cluster. If we go in here and look at this, we can manage a lot of different aspects, which a lot of thought tends to go into this as far as organizationally. But we can deploy a Couchbase cluster. We can configure users, groups, and role bindings. Configure an automated backup, as well as manage our buckets. Now, the concept in Couchbase of a bucket is pretty much equivalent to a database in the relational world. So if we look, we see all instances. We don't have any, nothing is deployed just yet. No streaming events. So in order to deploy a Couchbase cluster, we do have to configure our, basically create a secret for the Couchbase administrative user, right? So I'm going to do that first. If we go down, secrets, create from YAML. Okay, so if we go back to our operator here, let's go ahead and create a Couchbase cluster. Create Couchbase cluster, and we either have a form view, which makes it especially getting started, it makes it incredibly easy to go ahead and deploy a cluster. We do have some customizations here. Essentially what I'm going to do is deploy a 2-node Couchbase cluster. All right, let me scrape this off. and it's just going to be, it's very simple. We're going to use basic services, but you could also rename these services, define groups. We want this many instances of the data service, separate instances for your multi-dimensional scaling. Right, sorry. Okay, script this. Okay, and so we go ahead and create, and if we look at all instances, we can see that that the Couchbase cluster is being created. Go look under pods. No pods just yet. We have to wait for the. There we go. Our operator is creating the pods for us. Let's go back here, and we can see resources under here. We have our first pod is actually running. The second has come up, and so this also creates a couple of services. This was defined in the YAML, but we can access our user interface. So let's go ahead, go to routes, and create a route for example UI 091. So we create this. Okay, just that easy to create a cluster. Okay, and so we can see we have our two servers here. No buckets yet. So I think that the next step here would be to go ahead and create a bucket. We're going to create a bucket named tweets, and that's where we're going to land our microservices. Okay. Let's go back here to Couchbase bucket. Okay, so we hit create, and as you can see, it's already started to bring up the bucket. It's present on both nodes, but one of the things that we did with the bucket was we created that with 2 replicas. So that means 3 copies of the data. So we get a warning saying additional active servers are required to provide the desired number of replicas. So what can we do here? Let's go ahead and scale the node out to 4 nodes. Okay. So I just did, this is the OpenShift command OC edit CBC for Couchbase cluster, and then the name of the cluster. Right. Then we can see size 2. Let's go ahead and change that to size 4. And go back here. If we look at all instances again, resources, we already see that we had 0, quad 0, and then quad 1. We can already see that node 0002 is being created, and as soon as that is deployed and ready, we should see it in our GUI as well. Pending. Oh, there we go. And we can also check the events and the logs if we need to. Give him just a moment. We have the image, logs. Check something here.
While you're doing that, I just want to quickly remind the audience that if you have a question for either of our speakers, you can submit it to the GoToWebinar control panel at any time. You don't have to wait for the question and answer period. So feel free to submit a question, like I said, at any time.
Should see him show up soon here. So we're now in a running state. There we go. So we should also be creating, yep. And as soon as these show in a running state, you can see that Couchbase is automatically going to rebalance the data, even though there's no data in there currently. But he's going to go ahead and and redistribute to the other nodes. While that is happening, let's go ahead and start with our microservices. So this is the Twitter application. So the first thing we want to do is deploy our API service. Okay. And as you can see, you run OC status, but let's go back to our. So you see this, he's essentially, he will run the build service to, to pull an image and build the application. We can watch this, where we see that we're, pulling everything in. This should take a minute or two. Okay, let's go back here, check it with the logs. Okay, so now he's downloading all the APIs he needs to get everything built. Write this manifest out and storing. So we should see the application come up here, completed. There we go. And there we have it. He's creating the next container. So we do want to go ahead and expose this port. OpenShift makes this very easy to do. Let's go back to routes, create route. This was the Twitter API. Okay, use 8080. So what we want to look for is make sure that it's up and running. Yes. So we want to just go ahead and check the tweet count. Let's give this guy a moment. There. So we have a big fat 0. That's perfect. So we know that this the application is up and running. So our next task is going to be to deploy the UI. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back here. Okay, the UI is up and running. Let's go ahead and expose that port as well. It was 5,000. Okay, so to check and make sure that this is running okay, then we just have to add the API URL to the API service. Okay, as you can see, we have the live tweets, we have tweets ingested, we have an ingestion rate and popular hashtags. So the next thing to do is to actually deploy the streaming service. Let's go back here. Okay, this one will take a couple of minutes to build. Okay, so we see that we have the build service running. We can watch the logs. Okay. We're not going to need to expose the we're not going to need to expose this port because this all is going to be running internally. Okay. Make sure that he continues. So this is essentially just just pulling in a live Twitter feed. Not anything especially fancy here. Okay, should be getting pretty close. There we go. So it's creating the container after the build finished. It should be up and running. So we update our UI. We should be getting tweets in soon here. Ah, we've gotten 3. There we go. So we can see the live tweets coming in, total number of tweets ingested, popular hashtags. So we can also go look at our live cluster. Essentially, it makes it so easy to store data in Couchbase. If we can actually go look at the actual documents themselves. We basically just have epochs, and some of the text. If we wanted to, we could actually, query on these documents if we wanted to. Right. Let's make sure that we got a few in here. And so the next thing I wanted to actually demonstrate is, the recovery of a Couchbase server. And what we're going to do is simulate a failure here. All we really need to do in OpenShift is just to go ahead and delete one of the pods. And Couchbase cluster should be working properly because traffic is going to be redirected to the nodes that are still active. And the operator should notice that a pod that it's managing is down and deploy a new pod to replace it, as well as the Couchbase cluster resynchronizing itself it should rebalance once the pod is out, and then rebalance when a new pod is created. So let's go ahead and delete example 002. We can look here, and if we go back out to our servers, we can see it's almost immediately noticed that that the pod is no longer available. If we go back and look at, let's go back here, space cluster, and we can see that we lost number 2, but now 4 is already up and running. It should be available to the cluster very soon. Now, the first rebalance happened when the data from the pod 0002 was removed, and now we can see that number 1, there's no errors within our application code. The data's continue to stream in, and basically this is as fast as the cluster is able to recover and rebalance itself. So this is kind of a marriage between OpenShift, the Couchbase autonomous operator managing the cluster and resources, as well as the Couchbase cluster itself. And full disclosure, I did set the auto failover time down quite a bit. It's probably not something that you would want to run in production, but certainly better for demonstration purposes. Right, go back here. And this is, yes, this is a very small data set, but at the same point, you can see how in a lot larger of an environment, building in a lot of the intelligence and the automation will, should make your life a whole lot easier. Okay, building the index. Just gonna wait for this guy to finish. There we go. Okay, and with that concludes my demo. Let's go back. And I believe that we're to a point where we could do a Q&A. I believe we still have some time.
All right, great. So yes, we have about 10 minutes or so for question and answer period. So if you have a question, please go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel, and let's go ahead and dive right on into the questions we have. Okay, David, this relates to your most recent, your demo just now. I assume you have a command line where you were doing some of this that isn't shared and visible.
Oh, I apologize. I completely apologize. I assumed that I was that I had my entire screen shared, and I believe I might have only had the web browser shared. But yes, there was a command line. Yes, I apologize. This were just basically the OC create commands, or where I edited the the Couchbase cluster.
All right.
So yes, and actually the entire demo is up in the Couchbase Partners GitHub repository. Please feel free to either reach out to me for a more consumable version, or any of the YAML or scripts that I used.
All right. Okay, great. Next question here. Does OpenShift and Couchbase only work on the public cloud, or is it available for on-prem as well?
Yeah, I'll take that question, Jade. So OpenShift and Couchbase, they are available everywhere. You can install them on-prem in virtualized environments using vSphere or Red Hat's Enterprise Virtualization, or you can deploy it in the public clouds. So they're available everywhere for you to consume.
All right. All right, great. Next question, is Red Hat UBI free to use?
Yes, absolutely. It's free to use. You can download it from Red Hat's registries, and it is also freely redistributable. The only caveat comes from a supportability perspective. So if you run it on top of OpenShift, the entire stack gets supported, including the container host OS. Say, for instance, if you take UBI, package your solution on top of it, and run it on an operating system other than Red Hat's Enterprise Linux, then the interactions, or if you have an issue between the container host and the underlying operating system, that would not be supported. Otherwise, if you run it on a supported hardware or supported product of Red Hat's, the whole stack becomes supportable.
All right, great. Just a quick reminder, folks, plenty of time for questions. So if you do have one, go ahead and use the GoToWebinar control panel. and submit it. Moving on, here's our next question. Is the operator framework free?
Yes, well, just like with most of what Red Hat does, they all are born in the open source community, and we try to make them enterprise grade. An operator is a key mechanism for partners like Couchbase to build their products, make it pluggable or plug and play on top of OpenShift. And it also lends itself to other things like certifications to be able to kind of embed, say, for instance, David's intelligence into that operator. And you would have seen when David pulled up the operator on Operator Hub that there were 5 blue check marks. That's the actual life cycle, meaning those are 5 stage status. And Couchbase's operator kind of checks off on all 5 of those. So that's the intelligence that technical teams and partners get to build with the operator framework. And yes, it is free to use, and you can leverage a wide variety of technologies to build your own operators, including you can use Go language or Helm charts, and you can also build it using Ansible.
All right, great. Excuse me. Moving on, next question. What types of product certifications does Red Hat have?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are 5 lines of certification. We have Red Hat Enterprise Linux certification. We have hardware certification, like OEM partners like Dell and Lenovo work with us. Then there's the container image certification process. Then the operator certification process. That's how Couchbase built an operator on top of UBI container image, got it certified. And the last one is the OpenStack certification. So those are the 5 lines or streams of certification processes Red Hat has today.
Okay, and along with that question, a follow-up question, is certification necessary?
Absolutely, yes, because you then know that there are 2 different organizations like Couchbase and Red Hat vouching for that product when you actually look at it in the operator hub, take it and deploy it in your environment. And then if there are, let's say, for instance, support cases that you would have to raise, you know who to go talk to instead of go scurrying around the open source community to understand where you can best get support.
All right, great. Next question. Does the Couchbase operator also create persistent storage for the databases / buckets?
Oh, absolutely. There were some configuration parameters in there. With my current cluster that's in AWS, it has the ability of creating persistent volumes dynamically using the EBS storage class on there. I just for expediency and for demo purposes, I did not use persistent volumes, but we can actually even isolate, like if you have multiple storage classes, say you have some that are running on SSD, and this is going to be more important for the data service, we can actually break those apart from each other and have different profiles for different types of persistent storage.
All right, great. Excuse me. That's all the questions that we have in so far. I'll go ahead and leave the Q&A period open for just a little bit and see if we get any additional questions in. Meanwhile, while we are waiting, just a quick reminder to the audience that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And it is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website. So you can always go find it there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. All right, we have not received, oh wait, one just came in. All right, we do have another question here. Couchbase on containers, does it perform a read after write verify to storage?
It read after write verify.
Read after write or verify to storage. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I understand the question.
Okay.
The Couchbase on containers should operate the exact same way that Couchbase on bare metal does. The read after write verify, I do not believe so, but I could be wrong. Please feel free to reach out and we can set up a discussion on that.
Okay, he did follow up with container does not have a native storage. So.
Oh, right. Yes, and you're talking about going to a persistent storage. Yeah. Yeah, if you could, if you might be able to capture the user's contact information, I'll be glad to follow up.
Yeah, sure. And that's one thing I was going to let the audience know about is the fact that that the folks at Couchbase and Red Hat will be getting a copy of all the questions that came in, even the ones that were answered. And so they'll be more than happy to follow up with you if you do have additional questions. So Mario, please know that that you will get your question answer. And I'm sure David or somebody from Couchbase will be following up with you for that one. So, okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the question and answer period. I do want to thank everybody who did submit questions. There were some really great ones there, so appreciate that. Real quick, as I said before, today's event has been recorded, so you will have the opportunity to access it later on demand. As I said earlier, you will be receiving a link via email to access the webinar on demand, and it's also going to be on the DevOps.com website. All right, so at the top of the hour, I did mention we would be doing a drawing for 4 $100 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that. Our first winner today is Gary H. Congratulations, Gary. Our second winner today is Loris M. Congratulations, Loris. Third winner today is Alex B. Congratulations, Alex. And our final winner today is not VJ, Nick R. Congratulations, Nick. We'll be following up offline with all 4 of you to get your Amazon gift card over to you. So please check your inbox for any information. If you don't see it in your inbox, please check your spam folders. All right, BJ, David, thank you both so much for a great presentation. Lots of really interesting. Love the demos. Always love the demos, but the information was highly informative. So thank you very much to both of you for your time and your expertise. I also want to thank the audience today for joining me. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I am signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.